What we are going to do is, first of all, I would like to welcome Professor Kshitiz Gupta, Director of IIT Delhi. Sir, please come on stage.
Distinguished guests, members of alumni, the Ivy Cap team, students, some of my faculty colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I have great pleasure in welcoming all of you to IIT Delhi on the occasion of today's panel discussion and networking session. Honorable Prime Minister is launching the Startup India and Stand Up India program tomorrow. In that context, today's program being organized by Ivy Cap is very timely and relevant. The startup and venture activity has picked up very strongly in the last few years in all IIT campuses and amongst IITians and other professionals across the country. I'll tell you a little later what initiatives we are taking in IIT Delhi to promote this culture further. It is to the credit of Ivy Cap Ventures that they build a venture fund around leveraging the power of the IIT ecosystem around the world. On a personal note, I feel particularly proud of Ivy Cap's achievements because 5 of them belong to IIT Delhi. And 3 of them, Vikram, Ashish and Vishal, are from Aravali Hostel where I was the warden in those days when they were students here. We are pleased to see Ivy Cap working with ventures and with IIT alumni to mentor, invest and grow them into world-class companies. IIT Delhi, with the entrepreneurship cell of its own, also nurtures many ventures, and we will be happy together with Ivy Cap to contribute to India's pursuit to become a global hub for entrepreneurs. IIT Delhi is promoting innovation culture in a big way. First and foremost, we are targeting the first-year students to ignite in them the interest in the profession of engineering. The approach is to embed elements of innovation in their curriculum. Of course, the extracurricular component is also very important, which is promoted to the maximum. In recent curriculum review, several non-graded courses have been added. One is Introduction to Engineering, in which students interact with industry experts and understand that engineering design and innovation is a vehicle for social and economic development, and it impacts life of the people on day-to-day basis. This is a compulsory course with an enrollment in which the enrollment in the last semester was 850 plus. The another course is Product Realization, in which students conceive of a product and actually then realize it, they make it. The primary objective is to induce into them sense of creativity and inculcate culture of interdisciplinary teamwork and innovation. In addition, we have added some design credits to the curriculum, which students can earn through various design-related activities, which would even include internships in industry, in startups, with NGOs, and so on. A tinkering lab, which is open 24/7 has been set up in the institute, and that will be expanded further. A design innovation center in partnership with 3 institutions in the northern region has been set up at IIT Delhi with the support of MHRD. The objective is to create a design and innovation ecosystem to sustain translational research and to achieve a paradigm shift, that is, introduction of design thinking and design culture in engineering education. All measures are being taken to promote this. For example, we offer summer internships to our students to take up design-related projects. We have large number of clubs, robotics, automobiles, and many other areas which are supported by the institute, where students do a lot of creative activity. There are major alumni, industry, and government-supported initiatives in innovation, including attractive awards for students. Institute is making all efforts to scale up innovation-based entrepreneurship. So far, we have provided support to 50 startups, out of which 38 have exited, and 22 are ready for scaling up and commercialization. We are in the process of setting up 3 research parks, one on our main campus here and one in Sonipat. We have 2 extension campuses, one in Sonipat and one in Jhajjar. We are planning to have research parks in both these campuses. Innovation bug is spreading very fast amongst IIT students, and I have been told that some of the activities even going in the hostels. We have made provision for deferred placement so that the students can try out their creative ideas for 1 or 2 years, and then they can come back for placement if they need to. We are one of the major players in Rashtriya Avishkar Abhiyan, which you know is a major national program, which is of course targeting students. The objective is to promote culture of innovation among school students. So IIT Delhi has taken up a major responsibility to promote that. I believe that in present times it is not enough that we from IITs produce good, technically competent engineers. That is not enough. Much more is expected of us, which we are in fact doing for last 20, 30, 40 years, but we can do much more. We need to produce engineers who can be leaders in business and who have high degree of ethics and sense of social responsibility, and who understand the complex issues and have capability to innovate and be successful entrepreneurs. And in fact, most of our alumni, our students, have these qualities in some form or the other, and that is the reason why they are so successful all around the world. Today amongst us here are startups, accomplished entrepreneurs, IIT professors, students, Ivy Keep Ventures and their mentors, and accomplished leaders in the industry. We look forward to a very insightful discussion in this program and interaction. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to IIT Delhi once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gupta, and as an appreciation of token. Well, moving to our next topic, as Professor Gupta discussed startup to Series A and 22 startups are moving to Series A. So let's see, what are the key challenges in the Indian context? I would like to welcome and introduce our guest for the first panel, Saurav Kochar. He is the CEO and co-founder of Food Panda. Pradeep Gupta, he is the founder of Cyber Media. And Sikha Sharma, founder of Nutri Health Systems. Our moderator for this session is Ashish Wadhwani, IVCAP. Thank you, sir. Please come on the stage.
Is Saurabh Kochar around? Okay, I guess he can join the panel when he arrives. To the event, and thank you Pradeep, and thank you Shikha for joining us. We have in our midst a lot of entrepreneurs.
I'd like to welcome Ajit from Auth So if he's around, please come. Please come, sir. Yeah.
Welcome, Ajit. I'll probably throw some questions at you at the last minute, but thank you for joining us. We have a mixed audience here. There are a lot of budding entrepreneurs from IIT, and who have basically got a product or got an idea, who've built some version of it. We have in our midst, obviously, Pradeep, who has been through the entire journey and is now a very accomplished mentor as well as an angel investor. He's the founder of Cyber Media. Shikha is an evangelist on the wellness side, and she runs obviously lots of programs on the wellness side, and has also got her own startup, which is Nutri Health. And she's, let's say, in the middle of the journey, so she can share that perspective with us. And of course, Ajay is also budding. I mean, he's an investor, so he'll know a lot about the entire investment world. I think we are also fortunate to have both the India perspective and the US perspective, so we understand what the international ecosystem is and what the gaps in India are. Let me start off, with a general question on to the benefit of all entrepreneurs who have an idea and who've got some level of funding at the seed stage, and they're looking ahead and saying, how do I get to Series A and Series B? Let's start with what is expected of them, from a Series A, Series B investor, and how should they be preparing for that journey? So, Shikha, since you are okay, Pradeep, why don't you start?
So, I guess by the time one goes for a Series A round, you need to have traction. Okay. So hopefully, since you've already been funded, the team is already in place, your product is already out there in the market, and therefore what people are looking at, what kind of traction has been there, what sort of scale have you achieved, that becomes a very critical piece in determining. And when I'm talking about traction, I'm not just saying that you have a few users. I'm talking from a financial perspective also speaking from not just beta customers, but significant number of customers, a go-to-market strategy which is already in place. So that is the sort of a thing that typically people would be looking for at the Series A round.
Ajay, you want to share your perspective?
A dichotomy, I personally feel depends largely on the kind of business which is being considered for funding. I mean, if it's a pure tech business, it's important that the basic technology is in place from a proof of concept point of view. And obviously, a basic structure of a plan, whether it's a marketing plan or a sales plan. But if it's a pure services company, like the one I head, it's important to have some real customers and some real revenues going. And that's, I think, the biggest proof of concept for a pure play services organization. So it kind of varies largely depending on the nature of the business. And I think that's where the investors will also look at whether the company is ready for a Series A round or not. That's my view.
Shikha, for you it's much more recent. And
Yes.
What did you see from, and you look at it more from an entrepreneur side, right? What did you see as difference at the seed stage versus expectations of investors at the later stages?
So I think it's correct because unless there is customers, unless there is traction, there could be a very good model, but if the market doesn't want it, then at the end of the day, it's as good as, or bad as anything. So I think at the end, what's very important is your end customer wanting to buy it. And if that traction is there, I think all investors would be interested. And of course, along with that, though I don't know if you would be asking that question later, I think the team is very important. And most investors, that's the first or the second question they would ask, that if the model works, what is the team behind the whole thing? Because sustainability is question number 2, which most investors look for, that who would carry this forward, and the bandwidth of the team, that once it starts scaling, can the team actually ensure that they are up to that scaling?
So some very interesting point. I think there's a point on traction and basically testing out whether there's a market for it and how customers are reacting to it. There are points around making sure that the basic technology is in place, or revenue streams from, if it's a services model, and the issue of team. Now, if we sort of drill down, and based on your experience of perhaps mentoring a lot of these startups at that stage, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in India, or at least among Indian startups, related to market or related to team building, or even getting traction in the market? What are some of the things that some of the biggest challenges and things that they may get right or wrong at that stage?
So, are you talking about before reaching the seed A stage, or?
Yeah, before reaching. Yeah. So, in the process of delivering this,
Okay.
what are some of the challenges that you see?
Yeah, so one is that, typically when a company has gone through a seed round, at that time the team would be incomplete. Okay, and so you will be sort of completing the entire team. And when you are going through that process, that is the first challenge, because, new equations are being made amongst the founders and so on. So that is one area where there has to be a very, very smooth transitioning that has to happen from the seed stage and the Series A round. The second thing is getting your right go-to-market strategy. I think that is something which is very, very important, and a lot of startups struggle in terms of trying to have their go-to-market strategy. Usually they will get their technology, product, etc. right. Okay, that's something which, even if there is some hole there, it is fixable. But getting the go-to-market strategy in the early days is a real challenge. Reaching out to the first customers, building up that traction, that becomes a very, very key challenge.
Want to add to it, Ajay?
So, I think I agree with Pradeep on all his points, and some of the companies that I have kind of worked very closely with or looked at, I think when the founders haven't really been thinking very big. So, at the seed stage, it's all idea. When you're getting ready for Series A, you need to have a clear roadmap in front of you. And that primarily includes, a plan. And are you really thinking big enough? Is the idea going to be really big enough? Is it going to really solve a problem? and therefore have you put the right engine in place to do that? So that obviously, as Pradeep also said, in terms of a right execution strategy, a right plan towards it, and I think that's critical. Team also becomes at the Series A stage. I think team, or at least a clear structure on what kind of team should come in place by the time you're done with your Series A. That is very important, and I've seen a lot of organizations, started by very young entrepreneurs, don't have a very clear understanding because probably they either don't have the right kind of mentors, or they have inability to attract the right kind of mentors to work with them to build the right plan. So I think they need the right kind of mentors at that stage, and that's kind of crucial for their success and they're reaching the Series A.
So, very interesting point on mentors. I think there is a follow-up, question on that. We'll come to the mentors part, but Shikha, I think many of the things that they're talking about, you've tried to go through the journey, right? I mean, whether it's go-to-market or whether it's team building. What are some of the pitfalls? I mean, you must have tried several things along the way. Some succeed, some fail. So, what do you think are some of your lessons from that while you're building this?
So, I think not listening to the customer. Sometimes, we are so hard, we're trying so hard to convince the customer that we don't listen to the customer. And actually, really speaking, the customer is one of the best people who will give you ideas for innovation. To give you an example, and I was sharing this, that we run a service where we advise on diets. And when we did our data analysis, we were surprised ourselves that 50% of our customers were actually people who had done the program and who were returning customers. Now, logically, it doesn't make sense because somebody who already has the plan and who already has gone through it has the entire information with him or her. Why should they even return? And we realized that actually our business we were thinking we are in the business of diet advisory. Now we figured out we were not in the business of diet advisory, but we were actually in the business of counseling. Because the customers were looking for counseling and motivation and coaching rather than a diet plan. And that was our USP. And therefore, I think the most important thing you figure out is, like, you might have a good plan and a good idea. But eventually, the pain point of the customer which you're solving, you do not know because you do not know the customer pain point. So listening to the customer is one of the best ways to innovate the product and keep modifying it to suit the customer even more. And many times out of 10 things the customer tells you, because you're so defensive, you don't want to listen, but there is one thing which will make a lot of sense.
So this is a very interesting point.
Ashish, sorry, just before you move, there's one point which I missed, which is there for both the earlier questions that you had asked, which is in terms of intellectual property. Okay, that by the time you go for your Series A, your intellectual property protections should all be in place.
And that's a great point, but I wanted to, on the customer insight part, one of the senior mentors mentioned to me that a lot of time he's seen lots of ventures, and in most of them, people have a very clear idea of what they're doing, except two things. One, they don't understand what the customer really wants, and second, they don't know how to make money out of it. So it's a bit of an interesting part, but I think the customer insight perspective is quite interesting. So I'd like to sort of take this question from a sort of ecosystem evolution perspective. Obviously, there are parts of the world, the Bay Area, Israel, parts of Germany where this has become almost like an assembly line. And the ecosystem is very evolved. Now here in India, you have all these challenges and you have a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. In fact, majority of the entrepreneurs are first-time entrepreneurs. What do you see as requirements from the ecosystem to be able to make these ventures more and more successful?
So, there are several points. I will take one, and perhaps then the speakers others can keep on adding. One is that I think the biggest bottleneck in India from the side of the ecosystem is getting acceptance in the enterprise market. That means there are not enough, not just enterprise market, but other users also, there are not enough people who are willing to experiment and take that plunge and go to a new company and place an order on them and stuff like that. By the way, I'm not just talking about, the e-commerce and IoT and that sort of consumer space, but I'm talking about, businesses which involve some sort of sales to companies. Now, the moment you start looking at Silicon Valley, there people are willing to bet on a startup and are willing to try their service, try their product, and so on. That is something which is lacking in India. So more corporate support is required in terms of nurturing startups.
Well, I mean, it's, in another way, to put it in another way, it's an inability for enterprises to take risk on what is that they are mostly or otherwise very comfortable with. And having built a services business, I've seen this a lot of time. The other thing which I've seen in a lot of organizations I've kind of looked at or personally been involved in mentoring is that the entrepreneur doesn't really realize that he's got certain strengths in certain areas where he needs help. And again, I'll come back to my point of mentorship. I mean, when I built the business at early stage, I realized that there's certain areas in the business where I really didn't have strengths. So I had my strengths and I knew areas where I had gaps. So I had to reach out and find out. Thankfully, the IIT network worked out pretty well for me, and I could kind of dip into that network, dip into a lot of people who could give me the right advice at the right time. But a lot of entrepreneurs I see are very resistant to that. I mean, they still feel that they are kind of mavericks and they can handle all sections and all functions. So I think that's another area where probably as a part of our education process, we need to cover a separate area on how to become an entrepreneur, literally how to set up a business, and what are those for areas people who are really interested, and this becomes and that should become a part of the core curriculum. So I think that's the other thing which I think the ecosystem requires to have.
Shika?
So I quite agree with that. So I don't know about other entrepreneurs, but I believe most entrepreneurs, it's a very lonely journey, because most of the days you are handling disappointments than actually great days. So out of, say, a couple of months, you have like a day of happiness, excitement, but most days are disappointing because either the customer is yelling at you, or your employees are running away, or something or the other is going wrong. Everything which can go wrong goes wrong. But what I feel really works for entrepreneurs is what I would call a circle of believers. Now, I'll tell you how it worked for me is because when I started my journey, I was fairly alone, but then I got invited into a fellowship which had similar people, not strictly entrepreneurs, but similar people, similar age group, similar mindset, people who believed they were doing something different, who wanted to do something different. And just being with them, it was a process called the Socratic dialogue process, where a group of 30 people would gather around a table and discuss issues, anything. It was not only business, it was just anything. But the whole process of listening to other people, how they solve the problem, also gave them insights into that there is not just one way of solving a problem. There are several other ways of solving a problem. So what happened is, it gives you an insight into other ways of thinking, which is unique, and entrepreneurs usually, kind of absorb that very quickly. Second thing, it also gives you a feeling that, okay, you're not alone. There's so many other people who are doing exactly the same thing, having the same share of disappointments, and yet going ahead. So I think that whole circle of believers, if that can be created in the entrepreneur ecosystem, would really go a long way. Because see, at the end of the day, the entrepreneur has to find solutions himself or herself. There is no third person who can give them the solution to the problem. But the energy and the wisdom and that eureka moment only comes when you are discussing in a very positive environment, where other people are saying, okay, I also tried this, it didn't work, and and so on and so forth.
So, quite a few very interesting points. There is a set of points around customer insight. There's a set of points around innovating and building, let's say, a cluster of innovation. There's a set of points around mentoring. and seeking help from outside. And I think two more points that came up, which we probably need to sort of also look at as creating the business plan and reaching out to investors, and of course before that is the team building part of it. So if you just take maybe any of these or more than one, what would be your sort of advice to some of the entrepreneurs in the room on how to go about doing it, and what are the resources available? What should you be doing? Your top 3 or top 5 things that they should be doing in that area. Sure, I'll give you some more time. And Shikha, I love that. I liked your customer insight point. And you also spoke about the circle of influence and all that. So, would love to see some of the experimentation that you did in understanding your customer better.
So I think it's important for the entrepreneur. See, it's very easy for the entrepreneur to get distracted, and the distraction comes from many areas. When you get funded, you have to manage finance. It can be a big distraction. An important, but yes, it's a distraction. Then building a team can be a huge distraction, because entrepreneurs offer of different varieties. Some are people who are quiet and reticent and they do their own thing alone, and some are people who are more social and who can go out and meet. So if you are the quiet and reticent and doing things alone, building a team can be a huge drain on your energy. So I would say that if every entrepreneur mandates to himself or herself that this is the kind of time I will always spend with the customer, or in searching for customer information, which is real customer information. That is most important, because I feel, so I'll give you an example. Like, for example, we had 7-8 clinics where it was very hard for me to get to know the customer. So when we moved to a call center model, all I had to do was just pick up my headphone and call Baj. And sometimes it's very, sometimes you tend to forget because it doesn't seem very exciting or it's not crisis. But I think whatever I did right or whatever I've done right from the business point of view has only come from the fact that I was listening to those calls. Because you know where things are going wrong, and also you pick up small nuances, because the customer tells you everything. The customer tells you who's your competition. The customer tells you out of 10 things or 10 features in your product, what are the features that actually the customer liked. So you might think feature number 5 is wow, and you might put all your money there or energy or resources, but actually the customer likes something very simple, which was say feature number 2. So I think focusing your energy, also you know where to put. And third thing, and most importantly, you also understand that in your entire product, what is the virality and which is the area of virality which you can only pick up if you talk to the customer.
Ajay, you can pick up any point and go on.
So I'll pick the previous question that you had on an entrepreneur's priorities in terms of, so I remember early days of our business, and for me, priority was to first figure out, if the business is to scale up, then what are those bottlenecks that I need to kind of address first. And for us, because it was a pure play services business, and all our competitors were almost delivering service in a very similar way, we had to do something different. So for me, the first bottleneck was technology. So we sorted that. We got a good technology team in place, and we sorted that bottleneck. And suddenly we realized that we were ready for large scale. We could handle a lot of volume. And now the bottleneck shifted to acquiring more customers. So the priority one for me was to get my operational excellence of operations right, and then the bottleneck shifted to getting more customers. So now, and then we started putting money behind, marketing, sales. So priorities changed. And then when we started getting a lot of customers, we realized that a lot of inbound business was coming to us. So we need to make sure that our marketing is right. So we had to get the right marketing guys. So we did run a bootstrap business for a very long time, and we kept on investing money one after, in stages. So that's how we kind of prioritized our growth. So that's very important in the journey. Sometimes when businesses are very strongly driven by the investors and not really, and the objectivity kind of goes away or the passion just goes away. People tend to attack all the problems at the same time, and I've seen that with a lot of businesses which get funded. So that's very important to understand, not to attack all the problems at the same time, still continue to prioritize one or two areas, build them, and then go to the next.
So Ashish, let me answer your question by taking the opposite side of it. That why is it that companies fail between this journey from initial funding to Series A? One of them would be the execution risk. Lot of people have these ideas, but when it comes to actually executing, they are not able to execute. Whether it be, in terms of technology or, marketing or whatever, but the execution is something which goes wrong. Another big area where things don't work out is if the relationship between the early investor and the founder is not right. Okay, so perhaps it could be that the entrepreneur is not listening entrepreneur and therefore not able to take the guidance of the person who has invested the money, or it could be the other way around also, that you found actually a wrong investor who wants to do things at a different kind of a speed rather than what the business actually demands. Those are the two typical big issues because of which companies do not make it to Series A.
Great. There are a couple of more points, I think, around mentoring, and there are quite a few mentors here, and also, Dr. Wali is here, and from IVCAP there are lots of mentors. I'd just like to get their views, because I think mentoring was part of it, and it's quite integral to what both IIT Delhi eCell believes and also what IVCAP believes. I just wanted to check if from a mentoring perspective and building a circle of people who influence you, any of the IVCAP mentors or Vikram or Dr. Wali, would you like to make a few comments on that?
Can you hear me? Yeah, hi. Some of the points which are emphasized that by Shikha, that sometimes one gets into so much into frustrations or deep into whatever he or she is doing as an entrepreneur, that related or a bigger perspective or a broader perspectives are forgotten. So mentor helps you not just look at what you are doing and you are buried into, and sometimes you can't see things which are related and outside of one area where I found mentoring in my experience has helped. I'm right now mentoring a company which has been heavily involved in an Australian subject matter expert in compliance for import-export goods across countries and territory. Amazingly experienced, but so much insight that he's not able to understand that this solution, what he has, can be applied in other countries. So based on some of the mentoring, now he's coming out and taking that solution to other markets outside of Australia, New Zealand, to North America, and now into India. Now some of those things perhaps left to him, he would not have come out of that because he gets so much buried into it that he doesn't recognize the opportunity. The other parts is that sometimes mentoring helps a person to see solutions. The solution may be 80% ready, and because it is not done 100%, the energy and effort and frustrations are more being realized. So it might be some small items which are not being done well. If that can be addressed, which perhaps mentor can bring out, what about this, what about that, have you considered this? And those aspects play a big role. And I find that what I'm doing right now with this one company, and the second one I'm doing in a food and beverage space. So while we are building a solution, while focused on initial Indian market, but by mentoring and looking at the aspect that what if you want to take it tomorrow to Singapore and Australia and North America, what are the things which you want to build in today itself? So those are the kinds of aspects which help mentor, in mentoring the entrepreneur, who may have a lot of depth, but adding breadth to that and applying holistic experiences, as well as reassuring that, okay, it's not so bad, but by addressing some of these other related challenges, it can help. And I can give you another area where I'm right now involved as an entrepreneur. And already what you talked about, I'm already realizing that why am I getting frustrated, Shekha? Probably you already stated that, no, okay, it's not so bad to have some bad days. And sometimes that puts your positive energy good. So I'm looking for a mentor too. And again, mentoring is such an area where you can mentor people and you learn yourself from different people. So that's some of my experiences since I've been involved in mentoring with IVCAP as well as in my own capacity. Yeah. Thanks.
Yogesh, would you like to say?
Well, good evening. I am also a 79 alumni from IIT Delhi. And my mentoring approach has been primarily to listen to the entrepreneur. What is it that he's trying to say? The way Shikha said that you listen to your customer. When an entrepreneur comes to me, he's my customer. So I listen to him very carefully, and then I try and see what has been my experience when I was going through a similar stage of growth or startup. We also started, just like many of you are starting today. We started in '83, and we have been through our own journey. So those experiences of '83, '84, '85, '86, '90s, 2000 are the ones which you as an entrepreneur will be going through. So I try to bring a lot of what I or our group did when it was facing that crisis that you are facing today. We share this is what our insight has been. Your choice, you want to make use of it. How you want to make use of it, we are willing to discuss with you. You have a different perspective, let's discuss that. So these are two approaches I take. Third thing that I try to do when I'm mentoring someone is again look at the issue, the industry that person is trying to work in. What is his own personal connection with that industry or domain? A lot of people come and say, I have made this healthcare device, or I can make this device. Now, if I don't see a connect within the team, a deep connect with someone from hospital, someone from doctor, immediately an alarm goes up. That while you can make a very good product, unless you have someone from the domain with you, deeply involved, you will miss out a lot. Shikha has been a wellness expert, and she understands wellness, almost as a second nature. When she starts an enterprise, she knows exactly, precisely what the customers want, what the market is, what kind of revenues are there, what kind of rates are there, what kind of expenses are there. She's got everything at the back of her mind. But if someone else who says, I want to start a wellness program, and he has a very low connection with the domain, then as a mentor, I start warning him that either you get the connect, or perhaps look at an area or look at a place where you have a deeper connection with. Thank you.
That's very, great. Thanks, Yogesh and Lalit for sharing this. We spoke. There were a few strands of thought around our entrepreneurs being young and the need for them to know what they don't know and therefore seek help, and the circle of influence concept. We also sort of touched upon what's difference between India and, let's say, Bay Area. Now, the Bay Area, if you need someone who has done this 5 times, build a product 5 times, or who has taken a company from zero to his first sale, or the first sale to $10 million, there are plenty of that. That ecosystem is evolved. And the mentoring part, in a way, is filling up the gap in the Indian ecosystem. And I think, again, when at IVCAP we were looking at mentoring, like thanks to Yogesh, Lalit, and few of other of our mentors, there were 4 or 5 areas that they sort of help us identify what an entrepreneur looks for. And this is, beyond the first meeting, like typically the first thing is, can you give me a connect so that I can sell my product? Of course, there's the networking, right? That's one area. But there's also the deep insight into a function or an industry. There's also, which is like advisory. There's also personal coaching, which is really, quite important. And I think those are some of the things that Lalit and Yogesh mentioned. Thanks for that. I'd like to open it up now to the audience to ask questions from the panel, and we can address that.
I'm Gyanesh, and I own a company called Access Softtech, which has been also a vendor to Shikha and Pradeep in different aspects. So we've been working for both of your companies. The topic here was to fill that gap which an entrepreneur goes through at the primary stage of funding. You see, where a company is working in certain direction, having said by Shikha that you have to identify the market. You've identified the market as an entrepreneur. You've also seen the traction of your product or your service, how it's going, what is the demand, etc. Then the problem that an entrepreneur generally faces is to reach A series. So that is a big climb where you have to actually achieve that. Unless you achieve it, you're gone. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs these days, or probably for the budding entrepreneurs who are coming up in line. So what are your advices in particular as to what you advise to those entrepreneurs to how to bridge that gap? You see, that's very important part. I mean, Pradeep, you have, the experiences that you have of different companies. You've nurtured a lot of companies. You've grown them up. You've seen some companies falling by. You've also seen some companies, some of your verticals growing tremendously large. So how would you, and what would you suggest to those entrepreneurs as to how to bridge that gap? Having Vikram also here, and the panel is all about raising fund ultimately. So what is your advice on that? Thank you.
I think the first word I said, and I'll repeat that again, traction. The failure during this time is primarily because you're not able to scale up the entire thing. And you are then not able to show to a Series A investor that this is what scale the business can reach. That is the biggest sort of a gap which is there, because of which businesses fail. So, you start off, and if you remain a small sort of an operation, you're doing some B2C thing, and you just have, say, 100, 200 downloads of your app, then nobody is going to look at it. So you have to really get that traction. That how do I ensure that, it becomes my app is downloaded by 100,000 people or 1 million people. You have to start talking about numbers. If you are in the services business, then, if you just go that I got 1 customer and now I'll get 100 customers, unless, of course, it's a very large customer that you've signed up. But you have to show that, what sort of pipeline has been built, what kind of stuff which is happening at different levels, and so on. So I'm saying traction is something which is the most important part in terms of raising Series A. And if you can show that this is where I was and this is where I have reached from the time I took the initial funding and now, getting the next rounds, etc., is not going to be a problem. Unless, of course, suddenly the money dries up. That also does happen. You know, I mean, 9/11, I know that. So let me share a practical example. India's first venture fund, first angel fund, which was Infinity Ventures. I was part of that Infinity Ventures, and I'm talking about 99. The fund started. We invested in this company, and I was sitting on the board. And the first meeting, he had this plan that he was going to get into 10 cities and these offices, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I was discussing with him, and he was all ready that 9 months I'll do my next round. And so I said, you know, just think about what happens if there's no next round happening. How can that be? So I said, no, just think about it. And we left the matter at that, okay? And he still remembers those words. I didn't remember till he reminded me. He says, because once you said that, I went back and I worked out a plan B, that what if there is no more money coming, then how I'm going to survive. And therefore, he never went in with 10 offices. He went only with 2 offices to begin with for the next 6 months, till such time as the funding happens. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. Everything went sinking down. There was no money which was available, but he survived. Okay.
This kind of situation generally happens with companies who are bootstrapping for a longer period. And then you see, when they are bootstrapping, they are already occupied with a lot of other operational agendas. They don't probably try to show that traction, even though the traction remains always there in the business, but then probably they are not able to represent it rightly to the investors. So therefore, I feel I've seen a lot of small companies falling down just because of this. I mean, they had great ideas, they would have scaled up enormously, but because the mentorship that we were talking here, probably, that is reaching to only a few of us. You see, India is a growing country, a lot of potential. We have a lot of potential here, but it is especially for IVCAP team to probably.
That's why find the right mentor. It is very important, because the mentor is like, you know, Bhishma Pitama as well as Dronacharya. So he has to serve both the roles.
Hi, I'm Vivek Gupta. Just a short question. As a mentor, you should be concentrating more on taking a company to the maximum potential or making sure that it survives.
Mentors should kind of a believer in, you know, that Pygmalion effect. All right. So mentor's attitude is essentially that of believing in the Pygmalion effect, and he believes that the person he's working with has all the potential. Fine. So it's not just survival. His desire is to see his mentee grow as big as he can. Okay, it's not just survival. Now, a couple of other things that if you allow me 2 minutes. In November, we invited about 30 entrepreneurs from Indo-US Science and Technology program to our office. And the purpose was to hear them what their issues and concerns are, what's it that they are looking for growing their enterprises. Would you permit me this diversion? So our approach was very simple. We said we don't have any speakers sitting here. There are experts, experienced people, but they are all of us are going to listen to you. You tell us what is it that's bothering you today, that the questions that you want us to work on and answer you. And we left them. They deliberated amongst themselves for 45 minutes. And then when we went back into the room, we started asking them questions. And they said, we have got these questions. When we analyzed these questions were around 5 or 6 areas. The very first was, I want to scale up from where I am to the next level. The person who was at an idea stage wanted it to become a prototype. The person who had a prototype wanted it to be validated. Because there were a lot of, bio healthcare products also. So they had to go through a long cycle of validation. It takes almost 2 to 3 years for their product to be at least accepted, even though it is working. We know it is working, we know it's giving good results, but before it can be put out commercially, has to go through the complete validation cycles. So first question they had were around scaling up. Second set of questions that they had were around teams. We want to recruit people. We are low on resources, both in terms of time, material, our own this thing, plus the money. How do we get good people and how do we retain them? The third question that they had, the set of questions, were to deal with government. Government is my customer. I make this product, this healthcare product, or this thing, for which government is the primary buyer or is the biggest buyer. How do we deal with government as a buyer? Second, how do we deal with government because we have to take these services from the government? Even the simple electricity, tax, compliances, etc. So dealing with the government was the third area those entrepreneurs said. Fourth area they said was about how do we build a good brand. And when we started discussing with them as to what is their intent, we figured out they're looking for guidance in terms of taking strategic decisions. The choices to be made, a choice A or choice B, which way do I go? What will be its long-term impact? And it's very difficult to say that which of the choices is bad because both the choices have these pros and cons. So this strategic thinking is what they were looking for from a mentor. That means, can I have a dialogue to understand various aspects of strategy? Then came funding. And nobody talked about IPRs and protections and things of that kind. So very often when we go into these startup seminars, we organizers start planning sessions in a very, very different sense without even getting to know about what the entrepreneurs want. And that was an eye-opener to me. Otherwise, I would have packed the day with 6 speakers, one after another on different topics. But listening to them was truly an eye-opener. I mean, many a times as mentors, we even miss what entrepreneurs are trying to tell us because we are also occupied in our own world or in our own thought processes.
Sure. Thanks. I think this has been very insightful.
May I ask one question, please?
And
yeah, here, please.
Sorry.
May I ask one question? Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
we'll take the last one because I think we'll have another panel. We'll have plenty of time at dinner, so we can raise it individually also.
Sure. Would try to keep it small. I'm Kshitij Garg. Good evening, everyone. I'm the founder of Healers at Home. We are providing home healthcare and wellness services. Here to the panel, just would like to ask that how did you get your first 10-15 team members, who were, let's say, your core team, and did they stay with you for a very long time till the startup was there, or was it like they were going, new people were coming? How was it for you people?
Shikha.
See, I think the team, of course there are people who will come and who will go, so that will stay. It will not be that 100% of people who start with you will stay with you. But I think out of those 100% people who actually stay are the people who are as passionate about the project as you are, who believe in you. And those are the real core team members, because even if they don't see very far away, they believe in you and therefore they stick around much longer. And even on the highs and lows, they understand the bandwidth is, and the synergy, the wavelength is just completely there. So I think out of the initial team members, you will very quickly figure out who are going to be your core team members. They are the ones who do things not because it's going to get them brownie points, but because that's the way the organization or the little startup is going to benefit. So any person who thinks not at an individual level but at an organization level is the right core team person. And many times they'll challenge you, and in our country we don't like people to ask us questions. We just want to give answers without anybody questioning us. So people who very honestly question you and who believe in the vision are the real core team members, and they will be there.
And how did you go about getting these 10-15 guys?
I think it's just people come in and people who believe in the vision just stick. It's like a magnet, and the others move on. So I would say just keep, I think entrepreneurship is like salespeople. You just keep knocking doors. You don't stop.
That's it. Ajay?
Yeah, I'm just adding one point. I mean, normally we tend to, when we create an organization structure, we create positions and we start looking at people for those positions, right? But when you're starting up, it's actually the other way around. So you have to keep meeting people, keep finding out who are the gems amongst those, and then sit down and figure out where can you fit them in the organization, because you definitely want them there. And so basically look for people who believe in your idea and believe in you as an individual first, and then see where can you fit them in the organization basis their areas of strength, and that's it. And there is no other way. And those who believe in you will stay with you, and they will stay with you through the thick and thin. That's it.
So you have to be the chief evangelist, CEO, chief evangelist officer, not only for your customers, not only for your investors, but also for your employees.
So, I mean, if as an entrepreneur, if you cannot sell your passion, your vision, your dream to 10 people, then, forget being an entrepreneur.
Great. Thank you so much. I think this was very helpful. We're building our team right now, and we'll keep these things in mind. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much to the panel. And I think let's get on to the next one. I think before we get to the next panel, there will be a short presentation by Vikram, and then we'll get to the panel.
Thank you, panelists, and please, for a second, if you can wait. To our next section, I would like to welcome Mr. Vikram Gupta from IITD Ventures.
First of all, thank you so much for taking your Friday evening, precious Friday evening, to come here. Really feels great to be here. In fact, I always look for reasons to come here to the campus. And in fact, I was here December 29th on Alumni Day. It was a great feeling to interact with quite a few other alumni in the campus. It's always very heartening to be here. So now I won't take too much time talking about IITD Ventures because I think many of you already know what IITD Ventures is. So I would just kind of give you a very brief overview of who we are, what we do, and I guess it's important for people to understand what IITD Ventures is planning to do going forward. So I guess when I started in 2011, I think at that time, it's very interesting. I had experience of setting up another fund with a very large corporate, which is a Piramal Group, Ajay Piramal, where I had raised 400 crores, and then went about setting up this fund, of course, along with a team. And then, of course, now we are doing a second fund, and to me, it feels like 3 different eras. It's amazing how times have changed just over this last 7 to 8 years. The first fund, which was 400 crore sized fund, interestingly, when I went to the market to raise that money, there was, hardly any understanding of what a venture capital fund really does. In fact, even regulators actually, I actually set up a private equity fund. Was not understood well. Come 2011-12, of course, the market started heating up a little bit in terms of startup ecosystem building up in this country, and it was quite interesting to see how point of inflection happened when I was, when we were talking about this whole concept. At that time, the Olas and the Flipkarts of the world were just scratching their pen and paper, just building the models around that time. And it was quite interesting that, you look at, the last 5 years, where all these businesses have gone, from 0 to $15 billion companies. It's just amazing. It's just amazing to see where India has come. And tomorrow, we have this Startup India, I would say the largest initiative ever by the government of India. And it's very, very interesting to see that very large gathering of the Thai Silicon Valley is actually here in Delhi as we speak. And we are part of actually attending tomorrow the Prime Minister's gathering at Vigyan Bhavan, and a lot of other startups are coming, and a lot of other investors are coming. I think it's probably the largest ever that we are going to witness. I think venture capital, of course, is now the third fund, the second fund which you're doing here. I mean, of course, the dynamics are very different. So I think the way we have evolved actually, really fits very well with the way things are shaping up. We talked about the mentor model. We talked about how we scale up businesses, how we go from seed stage to Series A, therefore getting the right kind of funding, right kind of advice. So I think that's where we believe that IVCAP Ventures model works very, very uniquely and differently. We reached out to 65,000 IITians in the first 6 months itself of starting IVCAP Ventures. With the idea that it's not just about writing a check, it's about how do we really get a large number of people together, and how do we really create the same level of passion across them. And it was very interesting. 14,000 of them actually responded. And we had almost about 5,000 of them who said, here's my profile, here's what I can do. I'm very happy to help. And it was amazing. We raised the first fund of about 250 crores without using, any help from an outsider. In fact, at least I haven't seen a fund which would raise, first fund especially, without actually using any external support. Because it was just reaching out to the people who were your own people. And it's amazing when you go and talk to an IITian out there, you just say that you are from IIT Delhi, and even if he's from IIT Bombay, just the name IIT is enough. And the person can do something, he would just come forward and say, I'm there. Even if I don't have enough savings, I have time. I can allocate time to you. And today, we have probably the largest number of people in a single platform as mentors, which is what our Ivy Camp platform is. Probably the largest number of startups which can be there on a single platform. And added to that, of course, there are a lot more things that are happening on the platform, including the corporates and the, now of course, a lot of other players which are actually entering that platform. And we believe that this is something which is becoming like a single platform for people to, get the benefit of, not just the advice and even the customers in many cases, but also raise funds in small seed stage. So I think we are quite excited with the fact that the first fund has done really well with 10 investments. One of our portfolio companies, BG sitting here, is eShakti, which is one of our investments, which is also doing extremely well. In fact, our model is very simple. We actually look for, of course, entrepreneurs who we believe that, have the passion to be either number one or number two in their respective areas. Then we put all our time and energy and funds into making sure that they get there. Fund 2 is a 600 crore size fund. We just announced first closing of our second fund. We have already raised about 320 crores in a very short span of time, again, without any external support. This is, I was talking to somebody today and they were like, wow, you raised this fund without any external support. So I think I feel very proud of that, given the fact that, this is how the network can actually help you. Won't take too much of time. I think important thing for us to know is this network is only getting long. Very happy to onboard you on our platform. Thank you so much.
And moving to our next section, venture capital investments in India, a bubble or an opportunity. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome and introduce to you our guest for the second panel, Mr. Raman Roy, founder and CEO of Quattro. Mr. Dinesh Agarwal, founder India Mart. Mr. Vikram Gupta, founder IVCAP Ventures. Mr. Arvind Gupta, serial entrepreneur, head of BJP Tech Cell. Ruchira Sukla, South Asia lead for VC. Please be on stage, please, all of you.
Love to just introduce the panel very quickly. Raman Roy needs actually no introduction. He's the doyen and probably the founder of the BPO industry in India. He's also a serial entrepreneur and a very active angel investor. Ruchira is basically the head of venture capital investment in IFC for South Asia. Dinesh is obviously the founder of India Mart and also is a serial entrepreneur. And of course, Vikram is the founder of IVCAP Ventures. Now, the reason we chose this topic is, it's a little bit very topical. You open the newspaper like 2 months back, and one deal has been done, and the whole venture capital industry seems to be booming, right? And then there are these sort of murmurs to say that, look, actually this is just a bubble, and many of them are going to collapse in a short while, and those who are not part of the bandwagon are saying, we have seen it before, it doesn't work like this. So there are a lot of opinions and or reactions to let's say the headline in the financial paper. We'd like to dig a little bit deeper, right? What is the bubble part of it, and what is the opportunity part of it? And certainly the starting point is that I'd like to start with is to see whether in your respective industries, and I think you cover technology and healthcare for Vikram, perhaps, and any services, anything else, and consumer. Yeah. So in your respective spaces or industries, there's a bunch of things happening, and do you see disruptions happening in the next, say, 5 or 10 years, which could give sort of route to new ventures to come in and grab that space? So any of you in any order, you could start.
Is this on? Now it is. Are there disruptions happening? Disruptions is, it's a daily occurrence. I guess the headline grabbing disruptions are the ones that end up becoming businesses and get valued, etc. But from the services industry or the business process management industry, I think over the last 10 years or maybe even 5 years, the changes that you're seeing where the educated Indian is bringing in capabilities and knowledge that is fundamentally altering the value proposition. You see a lot of that happening. Some of them are converting into companies, but under the surface, there is a lot that is happening. The doer, our customers globally cannot understand that they were doing the same process for 20 years with the educated people in their home markets, and then they give the process to somebody in India, and in 2 years, 3 years, the process undergoes a fundamental change because the sheer quality of the Indian workforce and the capability they bring to the party, they'll come back and say, a simple thing, You know, in mortgage industry, they used to keep mortgages in a box file. And then some papers, when all the papers came in, had to be searched. There were different kind of documents lying in different box files. I'm talking of about 15 years ago, just to give you a flavor and an example. When it came here, they taught us how to do it. And then the team sat down and said, why don't we put it alphabetically? I mean, it's not rocket science, no? So that the search time when they were looking for a document reduced dramatically. Because otherwise they used to go through the entire lot of documents to find that document, and they put it alphabetically and they could find it. I mean, we didn't even sneeze when they said that, and they said, should we do it? We said, yeah, sure. And then the customer came, and the customer saw that happening, and the customer made such a big deal of it to say that we were running it for 15 years and we didn't understand. And your guys are so great. I had actually to take my manager aside and say, "Kya baat kar raha hai? Kya itna great kar diya humne?" Because the customer got so excited. So the innovation, I guess, coming from the guys who invest the funds, you only look at innovations at a company, but coming from people like him and me who run the companies, we look at this innovation where we can bring value to our customers. And I heard Shikha speaking about the value to the customers, and hearing and learning what the value of the customer is. That is what is critical. So innovations will happen. Whether we are able to package it and create value, that's another story. Because yes, tomorrow the Prime Minister is going to launch the Startup India things, and hopefully a whole lot of bottlenecks that occur in monetizing that value will be taken away. Because that is what the big challenge is. We need to take away the hurdles. Those kids need to feel empowered that they can take an idea and it can become something out of it. Try paying a bonus to a kid who came up with an idea, and look what the income tax guy will do to him and to you. I mean, paying him money which is taxable, and somebody has a problem with it, it's a big issue. So innovations, I think, will continue. You'll see a lot of it. You'll see them converting into companies, and you'll see huge valuation coming up. The next big ideas, particularly in financial services world, will emanate from this country.
That's great. Arvind, you want to take any sector and talk about what you think?
It's working. Actually, where Raman left is something I wanted to talk about. The financial services. I think India is at the cusp of the biggest revolution in fintech, financial technology. I think I call it the WhatsApp moment in fintech, in financial inclusion, in financial banking, and the way financial services will be offered in India. And we will lead the way the world does financial banking, financial services from now on. I'm sure a lot of people know that India has done what was never done before. We added 200 million bank accounts in less than a year. This has been the biggest financial inclusion ever. So today, almost every household in India has a bank account. Now, this is not something we should be proud of saying, but it took X number of years to reach here. But today we have reached there. And with that, the digital connectivity and the Aadhaar identity system, irrespective of its legal standing and all, but if you see this trinity of the Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, and apply it to anything, and fintech starting with, the potential for innovation, delivery, credit services, creation of absolutely new products and markets is amazing. And I think from if you see from the government perspective, there's a big push, and we all love consumer internet and all these new tech stuff, but I think the real reform and innovation that is happening in India, at last count, out of the 15,000 startups, at least 3 to 4% are really working on not just creating apps but actually disrupting the fintech market. And if you see the data exhaust that is getting produced because of this Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobile trinity is amazing. We have about 1 billion Aadhaar accounts now. That's a huge number. We have, for those of you who know, we have more than, about 1 billion mobile phones. 95% of them are actually on a prepaid system. They do 3 to 4 recharges in a month, right? Mostly cash today. Mostly cash. 3 to 4. Out of the 3 to 4, 4 billion transactions, hardly 5% are on a banking system. They're mostly cash systems. The potential to move them to a banking cashless environment itself is a huge opportunity. That's 4 billion transactions a month. Combine that with Aadhaar build credit ratings, the possibilities of applying technology with this ecosystem, the Jandhan Aadhaar mobile ecosystem, is immense. And of course, the government is doing a lot of things in that, in terms of giving the direct benefits into these accounts, doing the deduping across India in terms of making sure all the ghosts that we always heard about are getting removed from the system, and so on and so on. But I think fintech is an area which I think will get disrupted the most. I always say this, that it's the WhatsApp moment in banking. And thirdly, I think banks don't realize that all these small startups are nibbling a piece of them away, slowly and slowly. And banks are this monolith organization across the world, not only in India, that they don't realize what's hitting them. And it's not one startup that is hitting the bank. It's actually a bouquet of 10 startups. Somebody's taking their, the consumer interaction away. Somebody's taking the retail bank away. Somebody's disrupting the payment system. Somebody's disrupting the credit rating, the credit business part of the business, and so on and so forth. So I think this is an exciting area, and given the push on startups and fintech in India, this is just the beginning of it. We are sitting at an absolute beginning of it. More later on.
Okay, so talking about the classified industry, so India Mart or Naukri or travel classified or all of them, they have come a long way in the last 20 years. The first bubble that happened, what to say, is 99. And if you really see, none of the funded venture capital companies actually made it. None of them. All of them went back. So the only one which made it to the Nasdaq was Redefine Sifi, and now you can see where they are. Actually, the companies which were very frugally funded or not funded at all, they actually made it, whether it is Naukri.com, whether it is BharatMatrimony.com, whether it is Shadi.com, whether it is JustDial.com, and Make My Trip actually returned the money and then started again in 2004-05, and then they made it to. So I guess first and foremost, the learning that I have had is it's not money which makes a business succeed, or so that cannot do anything. It can only make headlines, and for the newspaper and television, they are looking for headlines. They are not worried about whether there is a business is made or not made. Very important is that they pull a consumer interest, and they also pull capital, and they also pull human capital, talent. Now that is something, if an internet happens, nobody wants to join an internet company. What is internet? What is e-commerce? Nobody wants to join an internet company. But when headlines start to flash in a economic times and on a TV channel, and when a startup becomes fashionable, then you get a very good quality of talent. Otherwise, most of the IITians would join Schlumberger. That's a famous name in IIT. I'm not from IIT though. So So they will join Schlumberger. That's their first choice of the organization. They would not join any startup or other thing. So one is the human capital. The second is the capital it attracts. Because there is one success story like Infosys happens, or there is one success story like Flipkart happens. There's a whole lot of success stories. The money starts to come in, and to succeed in any business, I think three things are required: courageous entrepreneurs, human capital, and financial capital. So what it does, this whole Prime Minister's event and the one headline, it cements the internet or the startup ecosystem for a next level of growth. And from there will be some burst, and then there will be some winners emerge, and then again it will go from there. So every 5-7 years the cycle repeats, and something like from IT industry to the BPO industry, then to the .com industry, then to the social media, and then to the discovery information intermediary businesses like ours. They have gone through a lot of change. From earlier they were only a listing businesses, then they became a completely cataloging business, whether it is a housing business or whether it is so the difference between a 99-acre and a housing.com with that every house is well researched, and same is with Trulia or other kind of businesses. So the information depth has gone very, very useful for the consumers. Also, I think there is no dearth of information now. So earlier 10 years of the internet was trying to find information. Most of it was finding information. Now there is enough information. Now people are moving towards quality of information, reliability of information, actionable information. Can I actually buy it? Can I actually place an order? Can I actually book an appointment? Can I actually transact right here or do something right here? Can I actually download this course and do something like that? So from information it has gone to a transactional or a action oriented piece, and to make the action the information has to be very accurate. Earlier there was like Alta Vista kind of search engines. They will throw you thousands of results, and you will flip through 7 pages of them to find out the most relevant article. But then that Google happened, and Google said, the top 3 articles are going to be the key. And similarly, there were search engines like product search engines like IndiaMart, and then you create a Tolexo where you say, oh, this is the product you can actually buy. So that's the difference that has happened in our information industry.
I won't speak of any. Hi, I won't be speaking of any particular industry because in my role we look at investments across various sectors, and it's more a regional focus but not a sector focus. But I can react to your question about disruption and change and where we've been able to find sustainable businesses that we could invest in. We've repeatedly found that the true disruptors were those who thought about a real need, a real customer need that they were solving for. And it had to be a complex problem that perhaps was being solved by some party, perhaps an existing bank, existing institution, some existing entity, but not as well as it needed to be. And then when you looked at this grave problem and solved it better and smarter, and also tied that with who will pay for it. Because just having a better solution is not enough. You need to find a better solution that then can be monetized. So somebody somewhere is willing to pay for it, and then marrying the two together gives you a sustainable business. And that's what we look for when we're looking at investments, because India is a big country and there'll always be early adopters for anything that comes to market. It's such a big nation, has such a diverse set of people, and what is a trap that entrepreneurs often fall into is you see your first few early adopters and you read into that a validation of what you're offering. And that's the time you most need to evolve, because that's the time you need to realize that it's not this initial traction that matters, it's from here to the next level. And for that you need to find improvements to what you're offering that can make it relevant to a larger scale of people who also have to be willing to pay for it. So we notice a lot of that when we look at when business plans that come to us, and that's the eye we look at them at.
So I think the interesting thing is how the world is changing, right? If we just talked about 1 billion people, having mobile phones, and almost now I think the number is always changing. But so we're talking about almost 350 million plus people having internet access, almost about 40 to 50 million people buying online today. But I think the biggest thing which is going all around that is the big data and the analytics, right? So I think the sector which I come from, in my background is healthcare, and I see that sector fundamentally changing now with this boom happening in the data management and technology, the use of mobile phones, and all this use of social media, and of course it's also seen the way people are becoming doctors themselves these days. So when you're talking to a doctor, you start telling no, but Google says something else, right? So the doctors are at risk these days, basically trying to, before giving advice, even doctors are actually first going to Google to make sure that, they are not being, pointed to a particular point which somebody will come and ask. But I think the interesting point is that fundamentally, if you see the Indian healthcare scenario, of course, it's a very different market as compared to the global market. So healthcare insurance penetration is still very low. But if you see, it has almost doubled over the last 5 years, from mere 7 to 8% to almost about 17%. And I think that's driving the entire healthcare market. And of course, the way people are buying even medicines online, the way people are, selecting their doctors. So the models like Practo and lots of other, home healthcare. I think lots of these things are happening as we speak. But to me, I believe that healthcare, the bigger picture, is right now at the point of inflection. I see a huge kind of a growth in that space because of the data growth, because ultimately it's all about data, right? So even when the doctor gives you advice, it's based on your reports, it's based on your history, and other things. So therefore, unless you have that data in a single place, that's where the EMRs, the electronic medical records, and the trends and analytics around, also linking it to genomics, for example, which is actually now going to the stage of personalized medicine. So actually now people are talking about, specific medicines being built for Ashish Wadhwani, because that guy has this medical history and this is his genome, and this medicine is not going to work. This molecule may have a bad reaction. So I think, to me, the world is moving in very interesting direction. I mean, the personalization is not happening only in healthcare. Of course, because there's a data volume, personalization happening across sectors, including financial services, retail, and other areas. So it's very exciting times.
This is interesting, right? Raman spoke about the sort of range of innovation possible in services, particularly because we are such a, vibrant nation and human resource, capital. Arvind, basically is saying that maybe 10 years from now, there will be banks, but there will be banking, but we don't know what will be the shape of a bank. That's what it means, really, right? Dinesh spoke about how consumers are consuming information differently and how it's helping them make decisions differently. And a bunch of technologies and data in healthcare. So disruption across the sectors. Now, the fundamental premise of venture capital investing is that the younger companies that we invest in is likely to be the disruptors, and the older companies will be slow to adapt. And how do you all see that? Do you see that happening, or do you see the larger companies coming in their own way, in the way of the younger companies, in the various sectors that you are?
Depends on, so let's, if we talk about particular sectors, for example, if somebody is, helping the retail companies or healthcare sector, two sectors if you take, you still need the hospitals, you still need, you still will have the retail outlets. So there is a lot of convergence between what the disruptors are doing in terms of enhancing the consumer experience, loyalty, whatever else they may be doing, but still using the basic brick and mortar, if you want to call it. Banking, but on another end, could become a lot virtual. As it is, money is very virtual, right? I mean, you hardly see it. And so really depends. In my opinion, the famous quote I have is a good friend of mine, Mark Anderson, made with Jack Milt in a conference, Surge or Web Summit, one of the conferences, I don't remember. Mark Anderson said, software is eating everything. And Jack Milt was sitting there and he showed a Airbus A380 and said, eat that. And, the engine of Airbus 380 can eat a lot more software than possible. So I think we are at a stage where there will be a lot of convergence. To say software is going to eat up everything, it's not possible. But yes, it's impacting everything. Technology is impacting every single bit that we do. What decisions we are making. You talked about personalized healthcare, how wearables are impacting our health and how they can predict what's going to go wrong with us faster than we can. So, there's a lot of convergence that could happen, but to generalize that across sectors would not be possible.
Just to add something there. Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
No, the original question that you asked, whether the newer ones would be disrupting the older ones, I think the answer is yes and no both, because you cannot predict whether a Flipkart would succeed or Amazon would succeed in India. At the same time, whether a housing will blow up a 99-acre or a 99 acres stability will eat housing.com, and that's what has happened. So I think when larger companies are built, they bring certain strength. When the smaller companies are born, they have certain agility. So the disruption would actually happen. So how would a Reliance come in? Everybody is hoping that Reliance would come in and data disruption would happen. Reliance is the biggest company in India, largest organization in India, and we are hoping that a disruption would come from Reliance, because the last time it has happened. Or Amazon has been disrupting with Amazon Prime, and then with drone deliveries, and so it's not that everything will happen from the startups or everything will happen from the in India. It is less likely that everything would happen from the startups, because the amount of merger and acquisition, and because the startups need exit. Startups, there are very few startups who have this ability to survive stage after stage. Everybody has a strength of either innovating something or growing it to some certain level. It requires a certain, so what got you here won't get you there, and it comes every 3 years. Now in India, the quick M&A is just started to happen, or a quick listing just started to happen. So I guess from Indian perspective, though I would love to have startup after startup after startup, because that brings a lot of talent into the pool, but to bet your shirt on all the startups, I think that is something one should be careful of.
So I think Dinesh, you built on something that I was going to say actually a little differently, because I don't think it is just about startups. I think it is about the startup culture, and that is your Reliance example that you gave. And I had the good fortune of working with Fortune 1 or 2 company, depending on the day of the week and the day of the year, GE. And I have experienced within this huge company a culture of a startup. My business, what is Genpact today, was funded by an internal venture capital fund, which Gary Wendt gave me. And when he tried to hire me away from American Express, I told him I'm not leaving. I mean, those guys, they think I walk on water. Why will I leave them? And sitting in Delhi, a few kilometers away at Oberoi, he asked me what my biggest pain point was, and I said, well, it takes a lot getting approval. And that guy was smart. He took $10 million, put it in a bank, and said, you and your CFO will be signatories. Nobody will ask you a question on where you spend the money. If you do fraud, we will see that you are arrested. And that's it. And nobody asked me a question, and that is, Genpact is today valued at $6 billion. So it is about that culture, and the culture can exist. I think the reliance point that you make, and I'm a little fascinated that you took Flipkart and Amazon as examples, because I still treat them as the new age companies. But I think what we have to promote is a startup culture, the ability of people to innovate, the ability of people to take a risk, the ability to ring fence a risk. And some of those risks will become companies that will attract venture capital, that will make a lot of money, and some of those good ideas will be within large companies, which will, be what a GE is, or what a Citibank is, or what a Amazon is. But that innovative culture, okay, let's look at it differently. There is also, and he said, talk about your industry. Today, one of the biggest things that is spoken about in the BPO industry is data analytics. So if you trace the history of BPO industry, we came into being because of labor arbitrage, what one of my friends calls your mess for less. He said, you do it like that, we'll do it exactly the same way, but we'll do it at 40% of the cost or 50% of the cost. And hordes of people came and trained us. I remember in early days, we used to have half of the Taj Mahal and Taj Palace, and there were only 4 or 5 hotels at that time that we could put these people up in. And you could walk in and there was tons of people who were all trainers who would come in to train us. From that stage to today, data analytics being big. In data analytics, the offering that India, and I'm talking as a country, I don't want to get into companies, the offering we have is you don't even know what big data has. You have no clue what it is there. You don't do it today. Even we don't do it today. But I have technology and talent that can do it better, faster, quicker than what you can do it. So that is an innovation where it is not a replacement of what exists today, but going into the so-called blue ocean or the white space and taking it to the next level, and that is innovation. So can existing large companies do it? Yes, they can, but that is where a small startup will come into being, the concepts will come into being. And you also mentioned that, the culture of M&A. Actually, in India, there is only acquisition. M&A, merger, is not really a reality. And I've analyzed it a lot because for many, many years I've sat down when I'm asked in December my predictions for next year. I say, you'll see a lot of mergers and acquisitions happening. And 3 years having said that, I tried to say what happened. That logically should be happening. There are a lot of subscale companies that should be coming together to create scale. It'll be more profitable, it'll be good for the customer, it'll be good for people. And that is where the one big negative of our culture comes in. Culturally, mergers is an issue in this country because if he's running a company and I'm running a company, to say I'll report to him, you got to be kidding me. And so there are some cultural barriers. Can they be overcome? Yes, but that is where people who make the corporate marriages happen. Only because you spoke about Shadi.com and Bharat, there is the next level of corporate marriages of these mergers that has to happen, and there's a lot of work that is required to be done. So they will coexist. The big guys are not going to go away. And having the startups having their lunch, I think we have to see it over a 10-year horizon. I mean, what was Xerox? What was Kodak? I mean, they walked on water. And these companies do not exist in that shape or form today. In a 10-year horizon. So in a 10-year horizon, the startups will become big. They will become. Facebook did not exist. Google did not exist. So the change will happen, and it may not happen in my lifetime, but some of these giants will happen out of India. And some of you guys are going to do it. Some of the outputs of this wonderful institution is going to do it. And I hope I invest in it.
Can I add a point to that? Especially when you talk about Reliance, I think one thing that definitely needs to happen a lot more is the old age, the brick and mortar, the big businesses out of India, or from India, the companies from India, they need to start also having a lot more of acquisitive mindset rather than building everything of their own.
Yes.
The startup industry globally has flourished because the Walmarts, the GEs, the Ciscos, they buy companies the moment they see an opportunity, and they find a fitment to further their business interests, or something excites them. That is something that I think needs to really get kick-started in India. Big companies need to understand the value startups bring, both from an innovation perspective, employees perspective, and of course IP and technology. So that is activity that we have not seen yet. The two big acquisitions, apart from a startup acquiring another whatever startup, some quicker acquiring Common Floor and all, which is...
Those are investor-led.
Investor-led.
I don't call them acquisitions, they have common
Exactly, I was clarifying that. The two real things have happened is Facebook acquired a company from Bangalore called Little
I Labs.
And then Twitter acquired.
Yeah, but I invested very little. By the time it got acquired.
The Little I Labs got acquired, so we have an investor from there, and then ZipDial got acquired by Twitter. But you would like to see a lot more of companies really getting acquired by Indian companies. That's where I think this is a very important thing to do.
So, Richard and Vikram, can you share the investor mindset in this, and what do you think of how do investors make money from this huge disruption that is going on in various sectors across the country?
I'll go back to the theme I was talking about earlier, right? Solving the problem. And if there's a true problem being solved, there's a monetization potential and a returns potential for the investor. That's the theme I'll echo. But also to go back to your question that the other guys responded to, a lot of very good points. And to highlight some of those, as an investor, I don't necessarily buy this theme of only a startup can be innovative or a big company. I mean, Google is not a startup anymore. It's about preserving the culture. To Mr. Roy's point, it's about preserving the culture where taking risks are rewarded. What happens is, as organizations become bigger, they try to put in place procedures and processes, evaluation systems, and soon you find that a lot of people start thinking about, how does my year's evaluation figure in what I do? And if that depends on taking a risk-averse, safe strategy and showing the results you've shown 3 times before, people take that path. They worry less about that in a startup, which is why a startup is allowed to be more nimble, make the mistakes, and then just pick yourself up and go running again. So as an investor, we do Series B and beyond. So we've seen, and IFC is bigger than just venture capital. We do a lot of traditional investing in big power generators, roads, and some of the larger corporations as well. We've seen some of the bigger companies being innovative as well, as we've seen some of the smaller ones beat the big guys. So, to pick an example from Reliance, one of my investments last year is in a broadband company called Ticona. And what Ticona did is they just looked at What is the problem statement? India is a country which will need extensive amounts of digitization, but what is India's connectivity situation? How many of us have, well, in metros you have fixed lines, but you go into the interiors of India, you don't even have a fixed line phone. You're dependent on a 3G network which is limited, where the towers are overloaded in terms of number of subscribers per tower. So there are various deep gaps in the infrastructure. And they said, let us take unlicensed spectrum and try to figure out if we could provide connectivity, broadband connectivity to Indian homes using unlicensed spectrum where they don't pay money for it, it's free spectrum, and provide a solution which is extremely cost effective. We've invested in it, and very proudly the CTO is an IIT Delhi alumnus, so clearly that's where the big thinking came from. And they've actually been able to grab market share from the big guys. And clearly, Reliance will come out tomorrow with, a 4G solution. But each time I talk to the CEO and say, are you worried? He says, no, I'm not. Because I have the capability to innovate. I have a team that gets rewarded for innovation.
So I think from the investor's perspective, we always, being the VC funds, of course, we are willing to take a little higher risk. So therefore, we are always on a hunt for the next big thing, right? So, of course, currently there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, these devices, connected devices, etc. So I think, and the application of these across different sectors. At the same time, things like, people are still working on building apps. There are new things coming where, apps won't be required anymore, right? We just have one layer on your phone and boom, the apps are gone. So I think we are on a constant hunt for those next big things, and that's the reason we want to stay very close to campuses like these, where we want to see, because constantly it's very interesting to see that we're talking about this culture, the startup culture. It's very interesting to see the startup culture building up across these campuses. In our times, it all used to be, what's your GRE score? So that's all people used to talk about, right? And I think time changed with, obviously, people started talking about, of course, there's been a very fundamental shift. People are now obviously coming back, and at the same time, everybody's talking about startups these days. Either they're doing their own startups or they want to work for startups. So I think that mindset is actually very, very encouraging, I think, for the country, because people are constantly finding ways to get to that next big thing. I think very interesting to see in Oyo Room as an example, coming from a guy who started at the age of 15-year-old. He's still 22-year-old. I mean, can you believe the young blood which is actually building billion-dollar companies? So very exciting times again. I mean, I think from a VC perspective, this is the right time to be a VC in this country, I would say.
I just want to come in with one point on that. Since we're talking so much about innovation, being nimble, driving change, looking at the next big thing, I want to also add a word of caution to that. All of that is very, very good. But what we've seen as investors in some situations is people getting ahead of themselves, right? So what happens is, you need to be very cautious. It's very good and nowadays fashionable to be young and to be on the headlines, getting funding, etc. But we've also seen some of the those very well-regarded entrepreneurs fail or stumble, and then there'll be bad press, and that suddenly makes everybody cautious and pull back. So for those of you who are out there trying to build your startups, it's always better to be humble and cautious about it. Don't get ahead of yourselves. Governance is very, very important. So some of those that have faltered because in this madness of getting ahead, they didn't put in the right systems, they didn't put in the right checks and balances, and that's when mistakes were made and investor monies were lost. So I think the cautious optimism is what I'd advise.
No, fully agree, Ruchita. I think another thing that people do not fully tell when comparing India and China and US as being the top three internet populations of the and young population is so they say GDP of India is now growing fastest in the world, and it is ahead of China by 2 percentage points or 1 percentage point. they don't tell that the China GDP is 10 times more than Indian GDP. So it will take some, X number of consistent politics being in this country to reach there. At the same time, when the 400 million or a 500 million internet user coming on mobile, the ARPU on the mobile is 160 rupees ARPU of the mobile, as against $16 in China and as against $46 in US. So I guess when T-Mall was being built, or when shopping sites were being built, neither did they offer big discounts in US, nor did they in China. So whether this discount-led market shifting that is happening, and Indian consumer is very, very cautious about money, including
very prices.
Yeah, very prices, including all of us. And I'm not saying about that 160 rupees thing. We are all thrifty people. So I think one has to be really cautious about the kind of companies that we back for, because everybody is gunning for that one huge $15 billion success, and rather than trying to find too many $100 million successes. So my take would be to find too many $100 million, $200 million successes. They're not bad actually. They're not bad at all. Because the one $10 billion success is definitely required for to begin this whole transition, or to say that nuclear reaction to happen. But then what you need is many $100 million companies to be built. And that's where I guess India, as culturally, has not seen Indian money coming in, Indian M&A happening, Indian acquisitions happening. That's where I think that hopefully this time that will change. Hopefully, because there has been some mergers, there have been some acquisitions. Naspers acquired Redbus. That was a real acquisition. No common investors. And Naspers acquired OLX. So Naspers did acquire a few companies, not an Indian company though. But I think when Tata is investing this money, that he's signaling to the next Tata that we need to do something about it. So I'm not too sure how much of IVCAP money is Indian money, and especially Indian corporate money.
Yeah, I think so far it's all Indian money, except for the IITians who live outside of India.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a welcome change that would happen.
Yeah, just to build again on yet another point I heard Dinesh make on the build of a success. And what this reminded me is, over the last 6 months, I've met senior leadership team of the unicorns, $1 billion valued so-called startups. And at least 2 people have sat down with me and discussed their plans to leave that company. And, he is talking of success, and you're saying large companies and small companies brought this out, and I thought I should share this with you, because I sat with them and said, why? I mean, तुम्हारा stock option कितना है? अरे इतने का है, इतना तुम्हारा पैसा बन जाएगा. I mean, why would you leave? Are they not looking after you? Are they doing anything? And the crux of it, in 2 different conversations over the last 6 months, no related guys, nothing. I came here for innovation. That culture is dead. Now the investors have put in money. The investors have a big say in what we start. The risk-taking culture is gone. I mean, one guy said, I'm being stifled. And, it really made me think, to say we think those companies are startups, we think there is a lot of headroom for them to grow. Key people in the management team think that the success that they are having. Sitting here, I mean, many of us would be happy to be valued at $1 billion. I don't mind. And sitting here, we see that as a success, but the team within is seeing that as an issue because it takes away a lot of the DNA. And I think that is the point that is very critical. Those of you having aspirations of creating companies, of creating this, just remember that carrying forward that DNA is very crucial. Getting money from outside parties is also crucial, but don't destroy the DNA.
So I think we might be a bit short of time, and I also want to take like Q&A. I just want to. It's quite interesting. I think the panel is pretty much excited about the disruption that's happening, both from small and large companies. Clearly, a need for them to work together and build the ecosystem. There's also the caution against stifling innovation. And also kind of running ahead of yourself from an investor point of view. But at this point, I'll leave it to each and every person investing in the little company, hoping to make a big money, to decide. But I think obviously the opportunity is large. But I'd like to open it up for questions to the panel.
I think one of the mentors did mention that it's very important to invest in something which you are strong in, right? So I think in our case, in IVCAP Ventures Models case, I think we are very fortunate to have a set of mentors who are very passionately involved in our model. So fortunately for us, when we invest in something, there is somebody out there who has that domain knowledge and typically gets involved, very actively in that investment. So it does matter in the bigger picture, so therefore you need this kind of a model to succeed.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry. The question I have is, I think a lot of the disruption that's happened in technology over the last 10 years was thought through human minds. But like Mr. Gupta was saying with NLP, artificial intelligence, how much of tomorrow's technology will be disrupted by technology? And what is the human role in that?
So I think technology, especially this cloud technology that has come up, is actually killing the IT industry. The .com is killing the IT industry, because IT industry is all about multiple, installations, multiple release upgrades, AMCs, release management, and those kind of things, quality analysis, testing. Now, what has happened? One of the greatest application of today's date is WhatsApp, run by some 35 people. Okay. Now, what happens is that the whole distribution, installation, update, virus, all of it is gone. So there are no more tape backups to be taken. There are no more. A lot of IT industries is doing mundane work. A lot of BPO come IT industry. So I think yes, you are right that technology will disrupt itself. We are going back, unfortunately but true. We are going back from having white-collared laborers, BPO and body shopping laborers, to white-collared laborers to again blue-collared laborers being in demand. Today, the most demanded people in the market are drivers and delivery boys. So, I mean, we have come full circle. So, if you are a B-grade software engineer, nobody needs you. Because there are no more bodies required, and there are no more BPO work left. It's all going, So technology is disrupting, and I am sure institutions like IIT will produce the next next level of working and other things. I hope we won't go more towards blue collar and we'll find something more white collared labor's
I guess the question is how many parents, when asked to say beta kya karega, will you say कि वो तो driver बनेगा ना? I mean, there may be a demand supply and there may be a gap there, but there is a pyramid, and to sit in the pyramid, what we drive, and to the question to say, will technology disrupt it? Yes. Will technology create that technology? I wish I was smart enough. I mean, as I heard that question, I don't know if technology will get created to create more technology, and it will be like those science fiction films that I see. But technology will play a crucial role, and technology will put a lot of things that will undergo a change. And I'm a firm believer, as a country and as an industry, there is nobody better placed than us in this country to come up with that technology. And that is the most fascinating aspects.
I think to answer this question, IoT is one of the things which you mentioned. It's like it's a set of technology which is going to create itself. It's like self-healing, self-learning network of things. It's a bit a kind of example.
Over a drink we can debate that. Okay, because you've been driven by some of the consultants who talk of these things. These are good things to talk about. Self-learning is, an aspect. Technology creation and taking data. Self-learning is a different way of using big data. It just changes the reaction based on data to say instead of doing A, do B.
Yeah.
So to call it self-learning, maybe you can call it, but it is data-driven exercises. The question was whether technology will create technology, whether, procreation, the next child born, a computer will create another computer like a child, like a